Greetings and welcome to the channel. My name is Dr. Nana Gyesie, transformational coach here at Inner Mileage, where we help people transform, optimize, and live their best lives right here. Today we're going to be embarking on a profound journey, an exploration of ego death, how it happens after abuse. And by the way, don't let the words feel intimidating. They're meant to induce curiosity, not fear. Ego death is not about destruction, it's about liberation. It's a chance to shed what no longer serves you, to release old patterns, and to step into the truth of who you are. And if you're an empath, a survivor of narcissistic abuse, or someone carrying the weight of generational trauma, this journey is especially for you. In this video, we'll explore ego death from every angle, what it is, why it happens, how it connects to science, psychology, and even spirituality, and importantly, how it can be a powerful tool for and of healing. So let's start with the foundational question: what is the ego? The ego is the I that we carry with us, the part of us that says, this is who I am. And it's built from memories, programs, beliefs, culture, experience, causes, and conditions. And in many ways, the ego helps us navigate our lives. So it's not bad. It protects us, it sets boundaries, and gives us a sense of identity. But the ego is a filter, not the truth. Most of us have made the ego the truth, where it is primarily a filter. It's like looking at the world through a tinted lens, and sometimes that lens becomes too rigid and too tied to old stories of fear, stories of shame, or trauma. And for survivors of narcissistic abuse, for example, the ego can become a cage built from the lies and manipulation of the abuser. And for those of us carrying generational trauma, the ego may hold inherited patterns that no longer serve us. So what happens when the ego dissolves? So this whole thing about ego death. Well, ego death is the experience of letting go of that I. It's the moment when the boundaries between you and the world dissolve. You're no longer defined by your name, your roles, or your stories. Instead, you feel a deep connection to everything around you. Some describe this as unity consciousness, others call it enlightenment. Ego death is not about losing yourself, it's about finding your true self. It's the part of you that's limitless and deeply connected to the universe, up and above your conditions and your trauma. So, how does ego death happen? What are the pathways to ego death? Ego death can happen in many ways. For some, it comes through intentional practices like meditation, breath work, or yoga. And these practices quiet the mind and create space for the ego to dissolve. Others experience ego death during intense life events like grief, heartbreak, divorce, NDEs, or near-death experiences, and so forth. And for survivors of narcissistic abuse or generational trauma, ego death can arise from the cracks that leave pain in your identity. It's as if the false self shatters, allowing the truth to emerge. Now let's look at this through the lens of neuroscience. Ego death is very closely linked to the default mode network, a part of the brain that creates your sense of self. And when this network is quieted, whether through meditation or psychedelics or deep introspection, you experience a break from self-referential thinking. Studies by researchers like Dr. Robin Harris, for example, have shown that this quieting of the brain allows for deep feelings of connection and transcendence. You go above the self. Instead of me, mine, you go into the all. And here you realize how beautiful science and spirituality converge, because neuroscience explains the mechanisms, whereas ancient traditions like Buddhism and Vedanta explain the meaning. So there's this sort of dance that goes on. So why does ego death happen? It's not random. It's purposeful because ego death is a call to transformation. It invites us to let go of the illusions that hold us back. For empaths, it's a chance to step into your gifts without losing yourself. And for trauma survivors, it's an opportunity to release the weight of the past. And for those carrying generational trauma, ego death is liberation. Trauma creates patterns of fear, patterns of scarcity, and patterns of survival. And ego death breaks those patterns by showing you that you are not bound by your lineage. As hard as that might be to fathom, that's what ego death shows us. And it's a chance to create a new narrative for yourself and for your lineage coming after you. So you don't have to fight the weight of your ancestors. You're allowed to heal. You're allowed to thrive. So of course, when ego death happens, it can be incredibly destabilizing. That said, here are some tips that help people integrate these experiences. For example, journaling your thoughts can be a very good self-analytical tool. Number one, I'll just go through 2 or 3. Practicing grounding, for example, spending time in nature, breathing deeply, staying connected to your body. All these things can be incredibly grounding. And ultimately, I highly recommend talking to a certified coach like myself or a licensed mental health professional to help you navigate through this, because you don't have to navigate through it alone. Now, after ego death, you're now like a blank canvas. There's a lot of emptiness, blankness, it feels like. And this is your chance to ask, who am I now? Who am I now? Who am I without my trauma? What do I value? What aligns with my truth? In fact, rebuilding after ego death isn't about returning to who you were. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. Who you were always meant to be. And this leads you to your new path, your new life. You begin to realize that ego death is a gift. It strips away the false and reveals the truth. It teaches us that we are not separate. We are deeply connected to each other, to nature, and to the universe. And for empaths, trauma survivors, and anyone on a journey of healing, the ego death is a doorway to your freedom. It is freedom from patterns that held you back. It is freedom from cycles, karmic cycles that keep you trapped in unhelpful thinking. It's about making a break with the past and not holding to the past because it's nostalgic or you don't know anything else, but breaking with the past that no longer serves you, recognizing the past, appreciating the past, yet having the courage to break with the past that does not serve you. And this is very difficult for many to do because we're so tethered to our past. We're so connected to the people we call our lovers or relatives and so forth, even if they are very harmful to us. And the ego that takes you away from that limited thinking to a more broad-based view, where you realize you're connected to the all, and you're especially connected to people who are most likely on a similar path of identifying and finding truth for themselves. So you realize that, as was said earlier, ego death is not random. It's a sign that you are ascending and transcending. So keep on doing this. Thank you for joining me today. Realize that ego death is not the end. It's the beginning of your true self. It's a profound transformation, and while it can feel unsettling, it's ultimately liberating. If you're called to explore this further, We are here at Inner Marriage for you. Send me a note at nana@innermarriage.com or type transform in the comment section. And remember, there's no one like you. Peace.